Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Garden of Steeden podcast presented by the Rugby League Bible. Fellas, we're back here, episode 3, absolutely flying. We had a few technical difficulties in episode 2. It is out on YouTube. You can find it through that streaming service. We had some issues uploading to Spotify and Apple Music, or Apple Podcasts rather. But that's all right. It's a learning experiences, and there's a couple of challenges to sort of, overcome, but that's all good. How are we feeling? 3 rounds down, 3 rounds in the vault.
Yeah, feeling great, mate. I was unfortunate not to see much footy last weekend, so the wait till tomorrow evening is absolutely killing me. But I think it needs to slow down a bit. We're going a bit too quick for my liking, I think.
Yeah, I've been good. My boys got up against the Storm, so that's all that matters.
Put it to bed, mate.
You got that team song ready for us or what?
Yeah, that's you. You're up, Bray. You got to sing the song.
No, it was a fluke.
No, I better be.
It was a fluke.
I better be quiet because my doggies are up against Melbourne this week.
Three straight, Braden. 3 straight.
Yeah, mate. We'll be back.
All right, we might just we'll flick through the review a little bit today, and we'll sort of focus a little bit more on that preview. We had some pretty good games we had across the weekend. We'll probably get through our formalities a little bit. You can find us on, like we said, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and also Spotify. Rugby League Bible on Facebook, or Garden of Steeden as well, up on Facebook, and the Rugby League Bible on Instagram, and we're also on Twitter. So we're doing pretty well. We're growing, and again, as that sort of content game, as you see for rugby league, it's sort of not that mainstream media, and we try and stick away from the negative side of things. And there's plenty of positives in rugby league, and as I say, it's a game that never sleeps. So we try to highlight them a little bit more. Looking at our review, our first game was Cronulla Sharks taking on St. George Illawarra Dragons. And this was an interesting one. It's not one that you'd normally see on a Thursday night, but I didn't mind sitting down and watching it in the wet there at Wynn Stadium. Cronulla obviously getting the win 36-12. Just a quick little touch on this game. I think Nico Hines is superb for Cronulla. Our next game was New Zealand Warriors taking on West Tigers at that 6 o'clock Friday slot. This game, it started well. It had potential, and I think that second half was a little bit of, if you had some chores to do around the house or you had something to do to get ready for your Friday night, you might do it during that second half. Only 2 points added in the second half, but we're not going to complain. It's rugby league, and that's what we love to watch. Well, Warriors were down a man, and Tigers didn't find a way to get the win. I do think if they had Hastings, they might have got the win in that game, but it is what it is. There's a few issues there. We'll see. We'll see how long Madge lasts or what happens at that club, but it was good for Warriors to get the win. I don't think they'll complain too much about that. Our late Friday night game was South Sydney Rabbitohs 28 defeating Sydney Roosters 16. I thought this was a beauty of a game, obviously much anticipated after what happened last year. And it surprised me that Bunnies got the win. I was sort of watching it, and the score is a lot closer than it looks. I think the Bunnies sort of left some tries out on the field there, but yeah, I don't know. It didn't really look like Roosters sort of were ever in it, and I just kept thinking, when are they going to hit? When are they going to come? When's the comeback happening? But it wasn't to be, and Rabbits pick up the win there, which is probably much needed for them. But then you look at the Roosters now; they're down with 1-3 to start the season for a side I personally had as premiers, but it's a long road ahead.
I'll tell you what, but I'm not sure when they meet next, but I cannot wait for it. Just that little moment where Joey gets up, throws the ball down near Latrell, and Latrell's just standing there with a big smile on his face. It's just, that's footy, man. That's footy.
And this is a rivalry that's always happened between these two clubs. Just a quick shout out to, I know he's a little fan favourite here for us, but obviously bloke in a bar, and I know he put up that stat across the history of rugby league. There were 3 points before this game, 3 points that separated these sides, which is just amazing when you think about it. You add up all the scores that, all the games are versus each other. You think about the years where South were sort of out of the comp and they come back, and there was a few dry seasons there where they, weren't that well. And we know how dominant and how much of a powerhouse Sydney Roosters have been. Obviously, that 60-odd point victory a few seasons back helps them. But again, I was surprised by the result, and like you said, you just can't wait to watch them play again. I don't know when that is. Maybe that's something we can find out, but it's one you'll mark in the calendar for sure. All right, moving on to Saturday, we had Penrith Panthers 38 defeating Newcastle Knights 20. This is a game I probably feel like the scoreline doesn't reflect the actual result. Obviously, we had the Mitch Barnett incident, which we can probably maybe talk a little bit about after we finish this review here. The news is in now that he did get 6 weeks suspension for that. And I just think that, with him in the side, they could have potentially got the win in this game. They did show some heart, and that was important for Newcastle. It's interesting. Again, no KP, but, you sort of think that do they need to sort of, worry about that at the moment. They lost to Penrith, who won the comp last year and is undefeated this year. So I wouldn't be too worried if I was Newcastle.
With
then we
12 blokes on the field for the majority.
Yeah. It was early too.
Personally.
Yeah, and it's only that they ran in a couple of tries at the end there. I think, Taylor May and Isaac Tago are just phenomenal on that edge. And then the big game, boys, we had Parramatta Eagles 28 defeating Melbourne Storm 24. Ray Stone just, doing what Ray Stone does, I guess, finding ways to score pies. That first try off the head of, I think it was Big Nelson there, that sort of assisted him with his melon, and then off the post. But, credit where credit's due. He did stay on side. As soon as I seen it, I think I messaged him, was sort of like, he's got to be offside here, but they get the win, and that's what they do. So Brad Arthur would be pretty happy with that one, I think.
I'll just jump in real quick there, Rust. Firstly, Roosters and Rabbits play again round 25. So the way to end the season.
Important.
Could be anything by there. And that's what a way for Raystone to end his career at Parramatta.
Yeah, that's right. With that injury to his ACL.
I'm devastated.
For sure, but...
Yeah, it's definitely upsetting, but doing what he does best, and that's probably why Wayne Bennett wanted him, just always working. And
for sure. So I guess again, in terms of and back with that Newcastle, the one I was going to touch on was that interesting Kurt Mann HIA, which I don't know if you've seen much about, but he got hit in the family jewels there and went off for a HIA. So I don't know, man. The bunker, they've got the wrong head there, but I'm not too sure what happened. And we have spoken on our podcast about that independent doctor and how it unfolds throughout the season. But as we look at the stats, it's one of the closest starts to a season we've seen in a long time. So we can't complain. There's no blowout scores in a way, like obviously 38-20, but there was a man down. If you look at that result last year, Penrith probably win, and they probably win comfortably with maybe 50 on the board. Just on those stats, I seen one posted by a Bulldogs fan page before I come on. And it's their bias, I know, but it's their best defensive start in the NRL era. So after 3 rounds, which is nice to know.
We haven't even talked about Bulldogs yet.
He's jumping in. I was just gonna say that you never want to verse Melbourne off a loss, and we've got them this weekend, but we'll get to the preview soon. And then that late game was the Canberra Raiders versus the Gold Coast Titans, and I think we caught up last week and watched the Saturday night game, and we both were sort of saying that some crazy things happen with Saturday night footy, Super Saturday, and obviously the Eagles game was a good setup, and then you had the Raiders coming back from 20 odd down to beat the Titans, which was crazy, I think. Typical Ricky fashion. I don't know, he must have flogged a few of them in the shed there at halftime, and I'm not sure. I don't think we'll disclose too much information there, but they get the win and they'll move on with that. On to Sunday, we had North Queensland Cowboys 38 defeated Brisbane Broncos 12. This was a surprise to me. I thought Brisbane might have got this game done, but credit to Cowboys. And just on this note, our rookie to watch this week, which is obviously who we've teamed up with through Lucid Designs, is Jeremiah Nanai. Nene? I don't know how to say that.
Did he play on the weekend or something?
Yeah, scored 3 tries. He did in the back row there for the Cows, 117 metres, and
some great tries too.
Yeah, didn't make an error.
Where he jumped for it, wasn't he? Like he jumped, it was like a cross-field kick, and he just went, thanks. I'll have that
twice, I think.
He got 2 off kicks, and he looks a threat too. So that's interesting to sort of see how he fits in there in that pack. And I think Ruben Cotter also played well for him off the bench. I think he might have returned from injury this week. And our last game of the And
Jeremiah Nanai is only 19.
yeah,
That's the scariest thing about it, eh?
I read some stuff today that there's a few clubs already looking at him and whatnot.
Bulldogs probably big one.
Yeah, they're looking at Paney. It's in his best interest to probably stay at the Cows for the time being, I think, where he's comfortable. And our last game of the round was Manly Seagulls getting off the board for their first win of the year, 13-12 over the Dogs. Again, a little bit of a Sunday afternoon game where it was a fair bit of rain involved in this game, which affected the result, I'd say. But, I think the Dogs' defence was pretty good. There was a time where they had about 5 or 6 sets on their line that they defended. But DCE, he does what he does. He ices games, he kicks field goals, and he won them the game 13-12.
I did say that can be a get off the board.
Yeah, you did. Anything you want to touch on across the round, boys? Anything in the news in the last few days that you want to sort of touch on before we get into the preview?
I will very quickly, just on the Cowboys note. Tom Steeden is really finding some good form. I thought he was brilliant against the Broncos on the weekend. Scored that try. I think he set up a couple too. He
3. I'm pretty sure he had 3 try assists.
3. See,
I think so.
I wouldn't have guessed that, but he's
Yeah, three try assists, and we spoke about with the Manu and the Latrell stuff. You talk about rugby league narratives, and this is just another occasion of that. Tommy Dearden against a team that didn't want him getting the job done.
Yeah, I did sit here and say last week that I thought Cow's victory last week was just a little one-off thing, but they proved me wrong. Valentine Holmes was really solid as well. That they were really, really good on Sunday. Very impressive.
And I don't think Val Holmes missed a kick either.
He was pretty good from the boot. So in terms of news, I think we had Jack Hetherington from the Bulldogs is out for the season. It appears there. Stefano Uto Kamanu, I hope I pronounced that right, 6 to 8 weeks, which is tough for the Tigers. And then obviously we have Mitch Barnett, who received a 6-week suspension. Just a quick take on that. What do you think? Do you think that's fair, or do you think maybe we're expecting a few more weeks? Personally, I thought I was looking at that eight mark, and I know we make some comparisons in rugby league. You look at the Latrell incident, but I don't know. It's tough to read. I think 6 weeks is sort of enough for him to, I guess, learn, which is important. We want him to not just miss rugby league, but we want him to learn, what he did wrong and fix that up. But set a bit of a precedent to the rest of the comp that this isn't on and you can't do this. I guess it's just lucky that Chris Smith wasn't further injured. But I don't know. What do you think? Fair, or were you expecting more?
I personally was expecting more. As you said, the first thing I thought of when I read 6 weeks was, isn't that what Latrell got for that little mishap on Joey Manu last year? But they did change the whole system a few weeks back. They scratched the prior offences and stuff like that. And I think if they didn't do that, he would have been looking at a little bit more time. But given the scenario, I think 6 is soft, but I do think it's enough time. Yeah, I do agree.
Yeah, I'm the same. I think Newcastle and himself are probably very lucky that they only got 6 weeks. But I don't know. I think they will set a precedent, and I hope that, because it was just stupid. That's all it was. It was just something so dumb.
And you never want to see these. You never want to see him miss games. You do feel a little bit there, but at the end of the day,
I don't feel a bit because it's his own dumb decision. But I feel for the club and the fans more than anyone else, and his own team would have to sit and play with 12 players.
I think that's the biggest thing too. This is a game that they could have won, but yeah, I just thought we'll touch on that. All right, we'll get into our preview. Round 4, like you said, it's going too quick. We're cruising into it. It's good, but you sort of have everything, something to look forward to every week. Like we said, the game that never sleeps. Our Thursday night game, 8:00, Seabus Super Stadium, which is for the last round, and you might be happy with this one for our Queensland viewers, but our daylight savings is going to change this weekend. So for the last round, 7:00. 7:00 Queensland, 8:00 in New South Wales. We've got the Gold Coast Titans up against the West Tigers. Again, a bit of a different Thursday night game, but I don't mind that perspective. Titans obviously looking to bounce back from their comeback loss against the Raiders, and the Tigers are looking to get off the board. Jermaine Sarko debuts. So we said last week, I don't know if there's issues we don't know about with Jaden Campbell. He hasn't been dropped. It does appear that he has a rib injury from what I looked at earlier. So, that's see how that sort of unplays. And Corey Thompson makes his much anticipated return on the wing there for the Titans, which is only going to make them stronger. So, they look pretty strong. Greg Marzu has also held his wing spot there, which is interesting. So I think Phil Semi drops out with a bit of an injury as well, or I think he's in COVID protocols there. And then for the Tigers, there's no real changes. They're still missing, or they actually get James Roberts, Kelma Tuolagi, and Ken Mamalo back from injury, which is three, pretty relatively good names for them. And looking through their team list, they've stuck with Jock Madden at 6 and Luke Brooks at 7. And then I don't think there's too many changes. I think it's a good opportunity for Madden to sort of cement himself in first grade while Hastings is out. And then whether they do move their boy Brooksy on or whether they play Hastings in a different role or Jock just gets shafted, I'm not sure. But I did think they looked more attacking when he was in there. And it's a bit, I guess it's also a bit disappointing that Stafford Toa didn't hold his spot. I thought he was good for him. And then for the Titans, Jared Wallace has been named 18th man, so I wouldn't be surprised if he comes in somewhere as well.
Yeah, this as you did say, it's an interesting Thursday night game. I sort of like this track they're taking. We're not getting the same old Broncos, Roosters, Rabbitohs, whatever on a Thursday and Friday night consistently. I find it pretty interesting, to be honest. But yeah, I have got the Titans in this one. I think they'll have a lot to prove after throwing away 20 odd point lead last week against the Raiders, and while the Tigers are still playing for that first victory of the year, I just don't see it coming. I mean, they haven't really looked like winning. Well, the best they've looked all year was against the Storm, and that's saying something. Like I don't understand what's happening there, but on the Jock Madden situation, I thought he was one of, if not their best player last week. He's I said after their first trial, I think it was the one against Manly, that he was clearly ahead of Luke Brooks at that point in time, in terms of how they played that match and whatnot. But I think it is a tough decision because Brooksy's been there a long time. At least I'd like to think he's trying his best, but I do think it might be in the best interest of the club to start looking at Jock Madden as more of a future option there. And wherever Madge decides, if Madge is there to decide what happens, I think it'll be a very interesting call. But yeah, Titans 13 plus.
Yeah, I forgot to give my tip there. I think Titans win too. I think they come back and they want to make amends of last week.
Yeah, I think Titans as well. I think 15 years ago, this was a game that everyone wanted to watch because it was that prime Benji Marshall, Robbie Farah back in those days against like Preston Campbell and Matt Rogers and all that. But now sort of these two sides are sort of faded into almost boringness. Like the Tigers were an exciting team to watch a long time ago. So, and like Bray said, it is an interesting Thursday night game. But yeah, I think the Titans are just going to be too good.
I think just before we move on, and correct me if I'm wrong, this is going to be a massive game for Brooksy because he's going to have David Fafita at him all night long. And I feel for the bloke, honestly, because he's due for a big one. And for Brooksy's sake, I hope it's not this weekend.
And, like, even if it's not David, you look at Bo Firma and the way he's playing, either way, he's going to have to make some tackles.
He's going to be a target regardless.
Yeah, 100%. We'll move on to our next game. We have a 6 o'clock game on Friday, obviously 4 o'clock if you're up there in Queensland.
5 o'clock.
5 o'clock. Cronulla Sharks will take on Newcastle Knights at PointsBet Stadium. So down at Shark Park, tough place to go. Talakai moves into the centres. Connor Tracy's out with injury, so I think he was good for him last week, but that might be a little bit of a target in attack there with him in the centres. I'm not too sure. Ted Wilton comes back from suspension. and looks to move straight into the back row, which is good for Cronulla. And just a quick shout out to Aiden Tolman, who plays game 300 this weekend. I think, to play one NRL game is a massive shout, but 300 is obviously enormous. Obviously spent some time at Melbourne there in his early career, played, 200 plus for the Dogs and then moved to Cronulla and still puts up some great numbers. So, congratulations to Aiden on game 300. Kalen Ponga has been named again, the story of the ninth season at 2022. Kalen's named, Kalen pulls out. I thought Tex Hoy played really well last week. We'll see what happens there. Brodie Jones replaces Mitch Barnett, which I don't think is a bad replacement. Brodie Jones is someone that, always puts in a little bit of effort. And other than that, they look like they're going to line up how they were last week as well. Edric Lee is still on the bench, which you probably won't get a spot over Anari or Dominic Young there. And, my boy Matty Croaks, I wouldn't mind seeing him in push into the side somewhere, but their bench has been good too. So I think this will be a really good game. Cool. I don't know if you can go past Cronulla, and I wouldn't mind seeing Nico doing his thing. If it's a wet game down there in Sydney, a wet Nico Hines, it's good to watch.
You would think about it.
Yeah,
Settle down. So.
for sure.
No, yeah, I do agree. I think this will be a great game. I'm hoping Kalen plays just to add to a bit more of the excitement that this game can bring. And also on Matt Croker, I thought he'd been really good the past few weeks, and I'm genuinely surprised that he didn't keep a spot in the team. Although they seem to have pretty big raps on this young Leo Thompson, who I thought, he hasn't been a shining light, but yeah, fair enough if that's what they want to run with. But yeah, I think the Sharkies will be way too good. Newey head down to the Shire, and I expect another Nico Hines show. I think he's a genuine. He might not even class him as a smoky for the Dally M anymore, because as far as I'm aware, he's been arguably the best player in the competition this year, and I don't expect that form to slow down anytime soon. I am, however, a bit disappointed that we still don't get to see Cameron McGuinness start. I'm looking forward to that game, but I guess time will tell when we get to see it. But yeah, Sharkies for the win.
Yeah, I've got Cronulla too, and I hate tipping Cronulla, but I just think Nico's going to just turn it on, and the Sharks really seem to be doing it well. And yeah, Nico's a freak. Like Sam said, he wants to see him wet. So
I don't think I'm the only one.
I think they're a genuine shot for top four, the Sharkies. It might be a bit far-fetched.
Smoky.
I think they're priming.
I don't even think it's a smoky anymore. Like, they've been so consistent.
Yeah, of course. All right, we'll move on to our next game. Penrith Panthers up against South Sydney Rabbitohs, the grand final rematch. This is Friday night rugby league, as it is. This is what you watch footy for. 8 o'clock in New South Wales, a beautiful time slot, 8 o'clock, By then, you've probably had a couple under your belt and you're just getting into your work. 7 o'clock in Queensland, you might just be finishing work. I'm not too sure. A massive in for Penrith here. Nathan Cleary starts his season and returns from injury and takes that number 7 jersey. That's just, there isn't a bigger in rugby league at the moment, in my opinion, than Nathan Cleary returning to your side. James Harris and Liam Martin have been named in the reserve, so it'll be interesting to see whether they come in late or not. If they don't, Scott Sorensen will line up in number 12 and Eisenhuth is at the 8 again. Other than that, they look pretty much how they were named last week. I think that Jason Demetria has named an unchanged lineup as well from their win against the Roosters. Why would you change a winning side? And Blake Taaffe has been named among the Taaffe. I'm not sure how you pronounce that one. But he's been named in the reserves as in his return from injury. So it'll be interesting to see if he does come in. Does he take Willy's spot? I'm not sure. But I don't know. Tough game to pick. I went against the Rabbits last week. I didn't really give him a hope, and they got the job done. But I think Penrith will be too strong with Cleary back.
Yeah, I do agree. I think Penrith will get it done. But I also think, just like I said last week, that I think the Bunnies will they'll really live for this game. They obviously beat them in last year's grand final, which clearly would still be stinging quite a little bit. But no, I really don't know. I wouldn't be surprised if the Bunnies can beat Penrith this week. It sounds a bit crazy, but I'm not writing them off once again. But yeah, if Nathan Cleary plays anything like he did in just about every game last year, it should be Penrith to lose. But I just want to see more of Isaac Tago and Taylor May on the same edge. Like they are, they're unbelievable. I love it, absolutely love it. But yeah, I'll go with Penrith.
Yeah, I'm going to go with Penrith. Just think Nathan Cleary is going to be massive for them. And when you consider who else they've got playing, and it's basically their full strength side again, I just can't see it going any other way, really.
Yep. So our next game, moving into Saturday, we have New Zealand Warriors. This game is in Redcliffe, which is interesting. It's good that they get a game. I'm not sure how many are up there in Redcliffe this year, but should be a pretty good matchup. I think they're pretty much how they were named. Sean Johnson's been named on the extended bench as in his return as well, so it'll be interesting to see if he comes back ready to play for that. If he doesn't, I think they've named Chanel and Cody in the halves again, which is a bit interesting. I thought they looked better with Ash Taylor there, but we'll see what.
Didn't they lose with Ash Taylor there?
No, passes his captain. Sorry?
Didn't they lose with Ash Taylor there?
I'm not sure of the result, but I think they looked better. I think they tried their hardest to let the Tigers side beat them last week. Without Ash, a little bit of game control, they could have gone a long way. Eli Katoa has been named to play, but he'll be monitored after that eye injury last week. So it'll be interesting to see who they bring in him. I think they've got. I'm not sure if he's fit or not. And then for our Broncos, Kurt Capewell's got a bit of an injury cloud over him as well. Thomas Flegler returns from suspension on the interchange bench, and Jordan Ricky has been named despite his rib cartilage damage. So there's a few injury clouds over the Broncos. They've got Reece Kennedy and Corey Jansen on the bench as well, who could just simply come in. But Kurt Capewell's named in the reserves so far. And Palacio moves to the back row, which I found interesting because I thought that, he was really good in the front row there, but we'll see what happens as we near closer to kickoff on Saturday.
Is this Ryan James's debut for the Broncos too? Or
he's played off the bench, but it'll be a debut start, I'm pretty sure. In terms of a tip, eeny, meeny, miny, mo. I think Brisbane, Kurt Capewell out is a big loss. I don't know. I like watching the Warriors play footy too, but it's hard to pick this one. I think I'll probably change my mind 6 or 7 times before I land on who I'm going to go. Brisbane. I'll say Brisbane now.
Yeah, I think this one for my tip comes down to what the situation is with Sean Johnson there. I think can't remember who they played round 1 off the top of my head. Dragons. Went down to the Dragons in round 1. I thought he was really good. He had that little bit of a brain snap kicking inside his own 20 when the game was slowly coming to an end there. But I love the Warriors. You boys know I love our brothers from across the ditch. But I'm going to tip the Broncos on the theory that Katoni Staggs is going to get more ball this weekend. I feel like they haven't been giving him enough this year. And God, you can't have someone like that in your team and not have him running the ball at least once every 2 sets.
Someone, the K-bomb must have upset someone or something. He must be doing something wrong. The boys aren't giving him footy.
We won't dive into what he could have done wrong. But...
a few feet involved potentially.
35.
Nah, see, this might be the toughest game of the round to pick. But yeah, I'll go the Broncos and just hope that Adam Reynolds shifts the ball out to Katoni out on that right edge there, so we can cause some damage.
Yeah, I'm going to go with the Broncos just because of Herbie. He's gone 2 games in a row. Like, he seems to be the only bloke in the back line that's having a crack, and the forwards of Haas and Carrigan. I think Corey Parker said something in the newspaper about how the Broncos forwards, apart from sort of Payne Haas and Pat Carrigan, have been a bit selfish, where it seems like Payne Haas and Pat Carrigan are the only ones that sort of have a run, and then they get out to sort of 5th tackle and just pass it to Herbie. So maybe they need to sort of change their playbook a bit, or those other forwards need to get involved a bit more. So even Kurt Capel seemed a bit quiet apart from that one field goal he kicked. Yeah, but I think the Broncos get it done. It's actually down. It's going to be nice, and it'll actually be quite cool in Redcliffe. It's only going to be 18 degrees. So change the weather.
Mr. Weatherman on the sideline or what?
Yeah, that's me. Just call me Andy Raymond.
Before we do move on, is that
Andy Raymond?
Was all those kind words about Herbie because of how he's been playing, or just because he's an Englishman?
Also because he's a glamour. So
Jack de Bellin is absolutely rolled up at the moment in his lounge and listening to that.
Well, we haven't talked about the Dragons yet, but it won't be nice this week either.
I know he tunes in.
Keen listener of the podcast.
Yes, he's #1 listener. Him and Nico Hines. Nah, we'll move on to our next game before Willy loses the plotty. We'll move on to our next Saturday game. We have Manly Sea Eagles taking on Canberra Raiders. I was nearly going to say they were hosting it, but this game's down in Mudgee, the Great Glen Willows Oval down there in Mudgee, which will be an interesting watch. Des Hasler is named at unchanged 17 for the trip to Mudgee. Josh Aloiai has served his suspension there, and has been listed among the reserves, so he could join that squad as well. I'm not sure who drops out for him, whether it's maybe Bullimore, but I don't think he would. Andrew Davey gets a start in the back row, which, you have spoke about before in the potty here, where, he might eventually get that back row spot over Bullimore, which he has done. So that's interesting from Desi, but you look at the Raiders, who have named pretty much an unchanged side too. Nick Kotrick is expected to overcome his quad injury, and he obviously dropped out late last week. He was a chance to play. Snyder played really good last week, I thought, or sort of helped him in that comeback game. And again, they look like they're unchanged as well. So I don't know. This is a tough one. If Manly play like round 1 and 2, Manly, Raiders can get the win. If Raiders play anything close to that first half, they won't beat a side like this all year. I'm not sure what will happen here. I think you'll just go with Manly. I think they probably just continue to sort of kick on with a bit of form now. And, like you were sort of saying there with the Broncos and some of the runs they took, if you look at Tukovic's game on the weekend, he was taking one man out, second, third, tackle carries, doing a lot of work, which is quite disappointing when you've got the likes of Paseka, who I noticed have moved to the bench, Kepi, which I'm pretty sure they have done last week, and to Power. You'd think they could make some meters and take some of them hard runs, but I don't know. I guess Turbo was just finding a way into the game, but I think Manly will win. I think it'll be 1-12.
Before I get too far into it, actually, on Marty Tapau not taking a fair share of the workload. He's playing for a contract this year. He come out and said he hasn't heard anything from Manly, and no other real clubs have reached out to him. He's got to start playing for that, otherwise he might end up over in the UK.
What's wrong with that?
Nothing, William. If you'd let me finish my sentence, mate.
Just on that, what club do you think realistically, could offer him, and what price would you think at that? There's obviously some clubs out there that might lack that pack. Do you have any ideas on if you're a club and you're watching closely this unfold, who do you think it would be, and what do you reckon?
Well, knowing how dominant Marty Tapau can be, I wouldn't mind seeing him come down south to Melbourne. We're losing a few forwards next year, and there is a few other names that I'd like to see us chase, but knowing that he hasn't.
You got to tax him.
Well, reportedly. But we need someone to replace Jesse Bromwich in the starting lineup. I think Marty would do great under Craig, but knowing that no one wants him, you could probably pick him up on a bit of a cut price deal as well. So I think they'll.
So just on that, just on that, it is his last season, and the reports he's on around 800k a season at Manly. Massive money.
He won't be getting that.
Yeah, you'd be looking at that.
And, half again.
If you look at it, you might get 900k over there for Leeds or St Helens or something. But if you are looking at or maybe some French over there for Catalans, nah. But if you have a look at Big Marty, he's only 32, which is sort of not that old, and he's sort of hardened as a first grader. I think a club like Melbourne, he'd probably be happy to take a big pay cut to go and play under Bellamy. And I'm not sure off the top of my head, but I don't think he's won a comp either. Maybe
he might end up at the Bulldogs.
Yeah,
plenty of clubs.
They got money, mate. They seem to be interested in everyone.
No, we've had our fair share of Marty Tapau.
You can always have him back,
And anyways, back on the game, I think this will be the game that Manly really find that form. I think this will be the first time this year that they'll play on somewhat of a dry track, and being out in Mudgee, it will probably be very dry because I don't think it's rained out there for about 20 years. And I think I feel as if this will be the game where their forwards and their outside backs can get involved a lot more than they have been to allow Tommy Turbo to start firing, similar to how he was when he claimed the Dalian medal last year. But I do like the Raiders. But I think they might get somewhat put to the sword this weekend. They might get a try or two in, and as long as big sexy Corey Horsburgh bags one of them, I'll be a happy man. But no, I've got Manly 13 plus here.
I saw some interesting stats somewhere on Facebook that the last 3 years, I think, that Manly have won a game off a field goal and then gone on a run or started to sort of win, and that happened last week. So
I'll let you know where you saw that. The great Hello Sport punters and dribblers. Obviously, the narrative pushed out of there is the Manly Sea Eagles. But yeah, there would have been some dribble coming out of that for sure that you would have read.
Yeah, so that's probably where it come from. I don't really know, but I think this is a game that could go either way. If Jack Whiten sort of turns it on, he's one of those players you don't really know what he's going to do one game. Like one game he'll have a crack, and then the next game you don't even really realise he's there. So, it could go either way. But I'm actually going to go against you boys just to, stir the pot a bit. And I reckon the Raiders can turn it on. If they can get Nick Kotrick to fire and Big Sexy up the middle, I think they could be anything. Big Sexy is Josh Papali, obviously.
Don't do me like that, Willy. We all knew.
All right. Willy, again, extreme arousal happening, so we'll move on to our next game. We have North Queensland Cowboys hosting the Sydney Roosters. I'm not sure what Toddy Payton has done there, but he must have some links in the NRL. They've been getting a fair few home games up there in Townsville. So, yeah, I don't know if he's,
He's got some naughty pictures of Andrew Abdo.
He might do. Or maybe it's the big dog, the CEO. He's got something. But yeah, it's good to see him play footy up there, and obviously that new stadium. But this will be an interesting game. I would normally say Roosters, but there has been some news in that Coach Trent Robertson won't attend the game with COVID protocols, so they're travelling to North Queensland without their coach. Joseph Suwali hasn't been named. Fletcher Baker is dropped from the team. It doesn't look like an injury. Whether he maybe has COVID protocols too, I'm not sure. and Daniel Suluku Fafita comes in to the side. And then for the Cows, they look pretty much unchanged. There's an injury cloud over Cohen Hess, who could potentially drop out before the game, and you'd see Jermaine Tanoa Brown come into the side if he does drop out. But I don't know, this is tough. They're at home. I would normally go Cowboys to win, but knowing how hot and cold they are and they won last week, I'm going to go the Chooks in a tight one.
Yeah, I think this might be the week that the Cowboys sort of get brought back to earth a bit. They had 2 great wins against the Raiders and the Broncos, but even without Robbo travelling up to Townsville there, I think this team knows their role extremely well. I think they should do them pretty easily. On Saluka Fafita's involvement, I've actually got pretty big raps on this, fellas, and there's a lot of it. But I think he'll prove quite an impact off the bench. Oh yeah, big boy.
He had that suspension for that
early on, didn't he?
Yeah, and then you just think about what sort of unfolded there and how that affected him. But it's good to obviously see him make a return and come back into first grade. I'm not sure if he's related to the Fafita brothers, but all the Fafita boys, or any 3 of them. But you'd think with a frame like that, he would have to be somewhere.
Yeah, no, I'm really looking forward to him getting involved there. I think hopefully he'll provide enough impact to keep that position, because I'm a bit of a fan of his. And Jermaine Tanoa Brown, our boy Young Maney, he's back from injury in the. I think I read he was expected to be cleared from injury or something along those lines. He's in the 18 jersey for now. I'd also like to see him work his way.
Just on that, obviously he's got some music out. We'll give him a bit of a plug. Go and check out Young Maney on Apple Music. He's got some good tracks, so
yeah,
you won't be disappointed.
You won't regret that. But yeah, no. Who is the Roosters' assistant coach?
Isn't it Jason Rolls?
Jason Rolls, I think.
Rolls in there, I think. Yeah.
After Fitzy left, and they've got some raps on Royals too. I think
he's been slouch.
He was at Melbourne for a little bit.
Yeah, I was going to say he come out of a good system, so he learned his trade in a good place. So I think they'll do him.
Here we go.
Easily this weekend.
Yeah, I think Robbo probably might not have been there, but he would have given him a bit of a rev after last week. So I think the Roosters probably will get it done.
What do you reckon happens there? Do you reckon he FaceTimes in, or do you reckon he zooms in and talks to the boys in the sheds, or what?
Yeah, probably like this, eh? Just like zooms in and goes, boys.
Listen here, boys. They probably put an AirPod in Victor Radley's ear and say, I want you to relay the message. Radley probably juices it up a little bit and tells it in his version.
Yeah, and then Teddy goes, oh, sorry, boys. Is what it really was.
Let us know what you do. Let us know the plan.
I think from memory, when the Sharkies were missing Craig Fitzgibbon earlier in the year, I'm pretty sure, I think it was Nico Hines who was saying that he tuned in with a video chat before the game, but nothing at half time. So
yeah, I think when it gets to like that, I think they sort of just let it go. Like, because there's a Josh Hannay. Josh Hannay's the assistant, isn't he?
At Cronulla?
Cronulla,
yeah.
So.
There's plenty of there's plenty of legends, or there's plenty of talent that has finished up at the Roosters and hangs around their side. There, obviously the Morris brothers and stuff where they probably travel with the side and can definitely relay a message or two. But what are your takes on this game, Willy? What do you reckon? Who's going to win?
I reckon it'll be the Roosters. I just think they got too much there, and I think after last week and that loss against the side that they hate losing to, it's a bit like a Melbourne Storm where you don't want to play them after they've lost a game. And I think that's going to be very much the case this week.
Yep, a bit like the Melbourne Storm. You don't want to play them after they lose a game. It's a good segue into our next game. Sunday afternoon, 4:00, we have Melbourne Storm taking on Canterbury Bulldogs. And I think maybe Toddy sent them same photos through to Craig Bellamy, because we've had a few games at Amy Park. But just on that, it's good to see them get some games there. Obviously, they haven't been in Melbourne for a while. You look through the team list and they look pretty well. How they lined up last week, Harry Grant is a massive in for Melbourne. I think he returns. Brandon Smith drops back to the number 14 and Nick Meaney just drops out of the side. And then for the Bulldogs, obviously we spoke about Hetherington who drops out. Brendan Waken's been named at 7, who came in late last week. And then you have Corey Waddell starting at second row and Chris Bartolo, who will come off the bench for him this week. This will be a hard game for my doggies, I think. Obviously, Melbourne is hard anytime you verse them. I think you look at Ryan Pappenhausen and his form in the last few weeks with, the wet match winning field goal and then the try last week to level it up. He's just in peak form, but I think the Dogs will win.
What have you been drinking, mate?
I'm looking forward to this game personally because I just looking through the squad now. I think this is the strongest team we've put out this year. I mean, we're missing obviously Cam and Harry, who suspension in round 1, and then Brendan Smith to a hand injury in round 2. And we've got all our big guns, and it still sucks that we've got no Christian Welch there, but he'll be on the sidelines supporting the boys. One thing I was quite surprised is that Josh King's claimed that number 13 jersey. He had a great start to the year, without a doubt, but I thought they'd continue running Brendan Smith there to try and make room for someone like Nick Meaney on the bench. But, I'm happy either way. I think Josh King's proven a great buy for the Storm. But, yeah, I think my boys might slap the doggies harder than Will Smith, but he slapped Chris Rock the other night. So I think he might be in for a big Arvo Rust. I'd probably sit down with a few drinks and maybe a box of tissues. It could get ugly.
Yeah, I found that Brandon Smith at number 14 quite interesting as well. But obviously, Craig Bellamy's worked his magic with another player and turned Josh King into a sort of just, he's just a hard work. And I think that they had that preseason camp and he won that toughest or whatever it is. So good on him. And I think he sort of earned it. And like you sort of said, I think Josh Addo-Carr's return to Melbourne won't be a very happy reunion. I think they're probably going to get smacked in a bit. He might be able to share with Rust. But yeah, I think Jerome Hughes hasn't had sort of the best sort of season so far, like in comparison to the last two. So I think that's all it is. Like you compare him to the last like good ones, it's very hard to sort of live up to that. So, but I think if Mad Dog Munster kept that mullet, I think the Bulldogs probably would have lost by 90. But I think it's a fresh haircut, fresh money. I think that's danger time for the Bulldogs.
Yeah, time will tell. We'll move into our last game of the round, 6 o'clock. Combank Stadium, so Bankwest, as we know it. We have Parramatta Eels taking on Illawarra Dragons. Para looked to be pretty well unnamed, except obviously Ray Stone pulls out with that ACL injury, and it looks like maybe Bryce Cartwright gets a crack for him off the bench. Other than that, they look pretty good. I think there's a few things to sort of, fix up a little bit, but I think after beating Melbourne in Melbourne last week, they'll be flying. You look at the Dragons and in terms of, their changes, Cody Ramsey drops out there and Matthew Fagai actually comes in. I'm not sure what's wrong with Ramsey. There's probably an injury there. And Jaden Sewer is obviously suspended. And Jack Gozowski starts in the back row. Gozowski? starts in the back row for the Dragons. Jack DeBellin off the bench for him, which is interesting. I thought he might have got a start. The other Dragons player that we haven't really seen yet, which I'm interested in, is Farmer Silly off the bench as well. And then they do have named at number 23. This one's probably, I have a close friend that is close with this family. Jonathan Rubin off the bench. If you're around that Queensland Cup, you would 100% know Jonathan Rubin. He's one of the most prolific try scorers the Queensland Cup have seen in years.
I think he is the highest.
and he's number 23 for them. If he gets a run, I know his sort of family and that crew will go crazy. But the other interesting fact to point out real quick is George Burgess has been cleared of his no-fault stand-down, but hasn't been named in the squad. He's still number 24. I think Para will win. I don't know. I think the Dragons have a bit of a tough road. But, I think after last week, Para will probably, take that win in their sails and continue to fly.
Yeah, I think after what I would call a lucky victory against the Storm last week,
here we go.
That Brad Arthur's men should really have no issue running over the Dragons. I do like the Dragons, and I like to see them win, but this is just a game that I don't think is winnable for them, regardless of what happens. I think Parramatta will take the Chockies on Sunday night, and I think they'll do it quite easily as well. Also, it's Ryan Madison who comes into the side, not Bryce Cartwright. I think he was there last week.
Yep.
Yeah, see, this is my two favourite teams playing against each other. You know this.
One of your two favourite teams.
Yeah. Team 1 and Team 2 of Team 13, 14. But yeah, I can't go against Parramatta. I was the only person that went from last week, and sort of obviously shows my rugby league IQ is a bit higher than the rest of you. But yeah, so I don't really want to say too much bad stuff about the Dragons, but I think Tyrell Sloan's just sort of not sort of living up to as much as he sort of was at the start of the year. I think just a bit of laziness, I think we've sort of seen out of him recently. And I think that's sort of coming up against the King. He might sort of get a fullback masterclass, but you never know. And I think this battle between Will Penasini and I think he's going to be up against Zach Lomax. That's going to be quite a interesting little battle. We sort of know what they both can do. So, and when you got Wonga Blake and Ravalawa up against each other too, probably two Fijian teammates at the end of the year, it could be anything. But I think the Eels will just roll over them.
Do you lads have a time frame on Jaden Sullivan? I thought it was meant to be this round, but I haven't heard much.
I think he's sort of just being a bit slower than.
Oh no! Yeah. That's all right. It'll be interesting to see what happens when he comes back. I've had big raps on him for a while. I know we have as well here, but
I think you might see someone like a Josh Kerr sort of push out, and I think he's got to have that number 14. Even if you could have that 9, because I think Moses Mbai is not really going to be the person who sort of wins you a game from hooker. So,
all right, that wraps up our little quick review and our preview for round 4. Thanks for listening. Thanks for tuning in. Again, subscribe to us on our YouTube. We've got the Rugby League Bible Media. You can find us pretty easily on there. Rugby League Bible on Facebook. Garden of Steeden on Facebook. Rugby League Bible on Instagram and on Twitter as well. So you can find us pretty much anywhere. We've got some fan questions happening. So if you've got some questions that you want us to answer, some hot topics or takes or opinions, don't be afraid to send them in. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you back at the same time next week.